Hey, what it do, what it do, what it do? It's Husk out here, man. Tune in, get your popcorn ready, get your beverage of choice ready. About to listen to the Husk Out High School Sports Show podcast, man. Informative. You know it's going to be great coaching, great players, and great commentary. Sit back, enjoy it. Husk Out. Peace. Longhorn Speed Part 2. This is Part 2. Make sure you like, share, comment. Coach Ray Gates, the defensive coordinator at the Cedar Hill High School. This is one you're going to want to listen to. Full of wisdom, full of knowledge, full of understanding and passion. TTHL.
Yeah, that's a powerful nugget. Like I'm assuming there's going to be many coaches listening to this, and not everybody going to the playoffs. Some schools you might have went winless, coach. So I think that's a nugget about really how to change the program. So you go from that school. What was that third school before you got to Cedar Hill?
So I went from there. Our fourth year at the school, we went 2 rounds deep in the playoffs. For the second year, we played, I want to say it was Abilene, Cooper. We lost to Cooper, a really good Cooper team. We played really, really good defense. We were first or second, I can't remember, in our district in our defensive standings and statistics. And so our defense coordinator had an opportunity to get the head job at a place called Dumas, Texas. And so he gets the job there, and he offers me the coordinating position, and I go with him to be coordinator. And so at that point in time, in Amarillo, there were 4 major schools, never had been a black head coach in the city at any one of those schools. I probably at age 31, 32, was probably one of 2 black coordinators within 100-mile radius. And so I had my first opportunity to go there. And so I went with him to help build that program and get it off the ground. And so I was there as the coordinator. That's where I got to bite my teeth as a coordinator. And so from there, I left and we went to Cedar Ridge, which was in Round Rock. And so Cedar Ridge was a different opportunity because that school, when I went there, was only open for 3 years. And so they had been playing football for like 3 years.
Okay.
And so, again, now we're talking about not having any traditions to creating those traditions. So going into a school there where we went to the playoffs every year and had a lot of success, which led me to Cedar Hill.
Okay. So you get to walk me through that Cedar Hill job, because that's a pretty big job in the state. You know what I'm saying? Walk me through the process of how that came open and how that, from that beginning stage, walk me through that point.
Man, I'll say this, man. I know that every place that I've stepped my foot, that God had ordained it. And there's just a feeling that I get in certain situations when I have an opportunity to interview for a job that I know that I'm supposed to be there. That feeling happened whenever I went to Cedar Ridge and I interviewed for that job. When I got in the vehicle with my wife, I had told her I knew it. The job is mine, and it led me again to this opportunity at Cedar Hill. So every year I always go to the state championship football game every year at Jerry's World. 80,000 seats in Cowboy Stadium, 80,000. I just so happened to sit behind Coach Lynn, Coach Chris, Coach Brown, that's a Little M, who's the head coach there, Coach Robinson, who at the time was the head coach at North Mesquite, Coach Hubbard, who was the head coach in San Antonio at East Central. And so there were 5 or 6 head coaches there, black head coaches. And so I'm sitting there next to my wife. I have no idea who these people are.
Wow.
And so Temple was playing Highland Park that year, and we played Temple the year before, and we beat Temple. So I'm talking to my wife. I'm just, saying what we did defensively to beat Temple, And so Coach Chris, he turns around, he goes, "Are you a coach?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I'm a coach." He said, "You may not realize this, but you're sitting around greatness." He said, this is 6 black head coaches here sitting right in front of you. He said, now you've probably never seen that before. I said, you correct. I've been around a whole bunch of us that got, head jobs. And so he said, well, let me tell you this. He said, this is going to be an interview for you. I said, okay.
Wow.
And so we just started chopping up football. So he asked me what I would do in this situation, what they did, and we just got to chopping up football. And it was like, all right, yeah, I like that, And so it essentially led to Coach Lynn turning around and handing me his card and told me, he was telling me about TASB, which is a convention that they have every year, and they were having one of the first aspiring black head coaches conferences there. So if you wanted to be a black head coach, it was just nuggets of knowledge that was going to come forward. And he told me, hey, if that's what you want to do, come down, in February. So that's what I did. I came down in February at the conference, the first overall, and it was great. I mean, things that aspiring head coaches, especially that are like us, information that we don't even know that we need, so it opened a whole entire new door for me with knowledge that I didn't have prior into trying to get into those rooms.
What would be one example? I'm gonna start real quick, Coach. What's one little maybe nugget that you can give on record? Like what was, what I'm saying? Maybe one something from that at that time, that conference.
Right. Well, one of the things is, man, your resume, right? And making sure that your resume is as complete as possible. While we were there, they did mock interviews. And so I had, we call it the hot seat. So after about 4 or 5 years of the conference, guys would say, oh, man, that's the hot seat. I don't know if you want to be in the hot seat. So essentially what the hot seat is in a room. Imagine being in a room with about 40 of your peers that are coaches, that are aspiring black coaches who want to become head coaches. Now you're in front of a room in a chair. There's a chair right in the middle of the room, and there's a panel of 5 or 6 like superintendents across the state of Texas. And so there we did a mock interview. We did like 4 or 5 mock interviews in front of a room. And so they give you a scenario. You're applying for this job. You're replacing a coach who has been a state championship caliber coach. You got this many kids. They just give you a scenario. Mm-hmm. And so those superintendents are going to ask you questions that they ask in an interview. Yeah. And so after you go through that process of being in that hot seat, then they give you feedback. This is what you should have said. This is what you shouldn't have done. I'm looking at your resume. Your resume, it's too busy. You got, big size font here. Oh, this word is misspelled. So if I see this and it comes across my desk, I'm automatically throwing it out the door. Like they're looking for reasons to eliminate you before you even get in the door. And so that was big. So I had an opportunity to sit in that seat. And with people listening to every word that you're saying, with people, saying, man, it's a tough situation to be in, because it really prepares you to walk in that room when you interview, because there's nothing that will equal that experience sitting in that chair in front of 40 people with a panel of guys that maybe one day you may sit in front of, for an actual interview. So that happened all at TASB, speakers, guys, Alan Wilson, who's a all-time, one of the, I think he may be the second all-time winningest, black coach. He came, he spoke, just different people. And so that's where I met, Coach Lynn there is, during that whole entire process. And at that time, he was still at Arlington Seguin. And so fast forward through all of that, about a month later, he picks up the phone, and I had talked to him about, a potential job. I had applied to be the defensive coordinator at Richardson. Okay. And so I was going through that whole entire process. And at the same time, Coach Lynn was like, just hold on. I got something brewing I can't say just yet. And I had no idea what it was. And, a couple of days later, he picked up the phone. He was like, hey, I'm the head coach at Cedar Hill. Like, I want you to come up, and let's talk, football for a defensive line, job. And I was like, "Are you serious?" It was like, "Yeah." I said, "Man," I said, "Coach Lynn, that's crazy." I said, "Because the year before, Cedar Hill had a defensive tackle position that was posted that I applied for, and I'm by trade. I have certification in special education, and now because I had to get one, I have one in history. But at the time, I only had SPED, and so at that time, Joey was still the head coach. It was his last year there. He needed a D tackle coach that was SPED, which checked the box for me. Who could coach D tackles? Checked the box for me. But you had to be SPED math certified. I was like, math? That's not me.
Wow.
And so like we got almost all the way to that point of just it being a marriage, and then there was the gap. So I didn't get there a year prior. And then fast forward a year later, Coach Lynn gets a job, and I get the opportunity to be there. And so that's kind of what I was saying earlier, how certain jobs and doors that have opened up for me, I know it was God that placed me in those positions at that time because of the way that it worked out. You know, and I tell people all the time, 80,000 seats, and I just happen to sit behind those group of guys. And those group of guys are my mentors today.
And I want to ask you another question. Name those coaches again, Coach, because I just so that they can get their credit.
So Coach Lynn, who again is my head coach and my mentor at Cedar Hill High School. Coach Chris, also who is the head coach at Arlington, Sam Houston. Coach Gilbert, he was there, right? He was sitting there, who is now at the University of Texas. Coach Robinson, who was at the time the head coach of North Mesquite. Coach Brown, who is currently the head coach at Little Elm. And then Coach Hubbard, who is the head coach at East Central in San Antonio. Like all those guys, at some point in time, I'll pick up the phone and call. I just got off the phone 2 days ago with Coach Gilbert, And so, like, those guys are instrumental into accelerating my growth, because who I was prior to coming here, I'm so much better. My growth has exponentially grown being under Coach Lynn and being, man, Coach Lynn is a master at finding a way to empower you. He has a way of seeing things in you that you have yet to realize about yourself. Coach Lynn is not a micromanager. He hires you to do a job and he expects you to do the job. He's not going to tell you how to do it, when to do it, why to do it. That's your job. And when you have that freedom to live in that vein, there is a natural bond between you and that person of not wanting to let them down. And so I grind as hard as I grind because of Coach Lynn and his ability to empower me and let me be me the way that I can coach. And not to hold that or try to take away from that or add that. He allows you to be you, and you don't find a lot of coaches that are that way. And I've been around coaches that micromanage you, and tell you what to call and when not to call it, and do all the things that they hired you to do. And then you just you're more so a puppet. And I'm not that way. You give me a job to do, I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to make sure that I do it to the best of my abilities. You hire me to coach the D-line, I'm going to tell you right now, the D-line, you'll never have to worry about the D-line. I'm going to make sure that my group is the best group. That's just the competitiveness in me. And so that's how I am. So Coach Lynn allows you to have that. That's just one thing. Another thing is he pours so much into you all season, in season. We meet, we have growth meetings where he's giving you tidbits of nuggets. I have so many notes from him that I'll take with me wherever I go. Meeting decorum, he always says, we go to clinics. If I see Jimbo Fisher on the front of, the front row with a pen and a pad taking notes, and I look around and other coaches are at a convention and they're not taking notes. Like, if he's not good, if he doesn't feel like he, is good enough to not take notes, or he knows it all, if that guy's taking notes, then I should be taking notes, and just small things like that in his way to motivate not only you, but to motivate the team. So I can go on and on about Coach Lynn.
Yeah. And give me 1 second, bro. Sorry, right in the middle of because give me 1 second. No bad for that, coach. Man, you put so much fire out. We needed that break, man. We needed that little firehouse break. What man, that was some good info, man. Coaches out there, I know y'all gonna be tuning in. That was some good info. I want to ask you this, coach, before we dive into you at Cedar Hill and go from there. What are some good lessons a first year young coach needs to know? Let's say he's 24, 25 years old. What you looking back with your wisdom now? What is something a young coach needs to understand?
Oh man, one of the things, probably the most important, thing, people are going to say work hard, be loyal. All those things are important and all those things matter. I think number one, above all of those things, is learn how to create relationships with your kids. Relationships, are what's most important when it comes to kids. You can know everything underneath the sun. Kids are not going to be impressed with what you know. They're going to be impressed about how much you care about them. And it's not about just football. When kids know that you'll bend over backwards and you'll go the extra mile for them, they'll go the extra mile for you. And so one of the things that, we do and I've done, at Cedar Hill, I got a huge smoker. I pull my smoker up to the school and we're going to feed our kids, and it comes out of our pockets, nobody else. Booster Club and coaches, we're going to throw in money. I'm going to fire it up, and we're going to feed our kids. And when you have kids that are like our kids and you sit down over a meal, it just does something. It changes the atmosphere and the relationship that you have with a kid.
How did you even, and I'm glad you brought that up, how did you even start that? Because, I mean, if for those who don't know, and some may be listening in from out of town or watching from out of town, Coach can get on that grill. And now I haven't tasted it yet, but it sure do look good, Coach. How did that start?
Well, it started from our first year, right? Our first year at Cedar Hill, we came in a new group, a school with tradition, and our kids are all about trust. If they don't trust you, you can't coach them. I had a highly touted DN, Shabazz Dotson, who ended up going to SMU and playing there. And we had kids, like that across our team. But, defensively, one of the things that Cedar Hill always did was after that Wednesday practice, they would just order some pizza, come in, watch film, and then send the kids home, And so with us, again, it was all about building relationships. And so we didn't want to just, say, hey, everybody pitch in to ask the kids, hey, bring $1, whatever. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to be able to take it to a next level. And so coach was asking, hey, what can we do? I said, I got the smoker, I got flat top grills. How about we just cook? And so we just started cooking for our kids. And for us in that first year, when we started doing that, everything changed. I saw it change. I saw our kids that were a little bit skeptical of who we were, what our agenda was. Everything that a kid, a fence, the reason why they were a fence or a wall up, I saw it come down because they saw us, coach on the grill again, and they thought it was a 1 week deal. We could pop up next week. It was something else. And when they see me pull up with my truck, they already it's going down, coach. What you got for us, coach?
Yeah.
And for us, that allowed us to kick down the door early at Cedar Hill and build those relationships with those kids, because now we had an opportunity to sit down over a plate of food and we found out things about those kids that we wouldn't have if we were just on the football field, or if we were just walking off the field. It allowed their walls to come down and our walls to come down, and we showed them that we really cared about them. We would go the extra mile for them. And that's, like I said, the most important thing I think you can do as a coach is to build a relationship with the kid. And that relationship shouldn't stop when they walk out of your building, because I know how that feels, and I always vow as a coach to make sure that I keep in contact with my kids when they leave. And we have coaches like that, throughout our building. And I think that's important.
Man, that's in essence, that's like y'all was building culture, coach. Y'all building culture through that. Was grilling, was that something like a hobby that you were already doing? I mean, because that smoker you got is pretty legit. Were you already cooking as a kind of like a hobby?
Yeah, man. I mean, where I'm from, that's what we do. We gonna throw some on the pit. Somebody gonna whip up some sides, and somebody gonna ride about you cooking it. Come on over. And that's just how it is in the country. And my dad, my dad has been a welder by trade, so my dad welded my smoker. My uncle has been a carpenter by trade, and he's learned how to weld. And so both of those guys, I came up with the design, and they did all the welding and all the cutting. That ain't my specialty. I can't do any of that. But my uncle, he cooks in competition. So when I go home, he either has a new rub or he calls me and asks me about a couple of questions. And we're always talking about food. And so we that's just what we do. So it's a huge hobby of mine. Yes.
Yeah, I like cooking too. So that's where. And for those who don't know, man, me and Coach, I didn't know this, but me and Coach, we share birthdays, man, and I love to grill too.
For sure.
Yeah, man. So that's kind of cool. So Cedar Hill. So you get there, you start coaching D line, you're working with the line. I know this year your first, you're the defensive coordinator. But walk me through Cedar Hill, the tradition, who you guys are, what you stand for. Walk me through that, Coach.
Man,
especially as a defensive coordinator now, because you've only been in DC for 1 year, correct?
Correct.
There. Okay, walk me through that.
Here. So, I get to Cedar Hill. I coached D-line for a year. The very next year, Coach Rosico, who had been at Cedar Hill for like 16 years, he got an opportunity to coach college. So he leaves. He was the safeties coach and special teams coordinator. So I become the special teams coordinator first time that I get an opportunity to coordinate special teams. And so I do that for 3 years there. And then, of course, this year, Coach Harris have an opportunity to become the head coach over at Mesquite, allowed for this opportunity for me, in which I always knew that, I was kind of the next guy in waiting. So the opportunity there, came, and I was able to fit that and essentially try to, do exactly what we've been doing, playing good defense since we've been here. But, the culture and the tradition at Cedar Hill was set, and that was important whenever they hired Coach Lynn, is because they wanted to keep everything the same. And Cedar Hill is really a place that, this is the first place that I really can say that when we talk about culture, it's real. I personify culture at Cedar Hill. And what I mean by that is that culture at Cedar Hill is like a person that's living, breathing, walking around the building. Like, you can see culture at Cedar Hill. A lot of people throw that around and they use the word culture, but when you go to their place, you can't see it. It's not evident. It's not there. That's not how it is at Cedar Hill. It's a storied program with storied traditions and storied off-season things that they were doing when they turned the ship in 2005 are the same things that we're doing today. We're following the same blueprint. It's just 2.0. So one of the things that is huge at Cedar Hill is boot camp. If you talk to Joey McGuire would tell you when they got it to change at Cedar Hill, he talks about boot camp. He was at our school 2 days ago. We sat in the office and it was all the old stories, telling all the things. And he said, at Texas Tech, we are going to do boot camp. He said, I've already told Ronnie Flowers, send me jock straps because we're going to do boot camp. He believed in it that much. And so when the job came available when Joey left, all those things, that tradition, that culture, that's real. Like, I can break down our program to you, our mission statement, to our vision, to our standard of behavior. All those things would have went away with Joey, and they wanted someone that understood how important that is to us. And so boot camp happened in 2005. We won the state championship in 2006. And because of what boot camp did, it trickled over into other areas of our athletic program. So our girls, they do a version of boot camp. Our boys basketball, they do a version of boot camp. People come across the state of Texas just to watch us do boot camp. And it's that powerful. And that's part of the reason why we always felt like at Cedar Hill, our kids are different. And they believe they're different because we tell them, you have gone through boot camp. Boot camp is like forging you in the fire. You can't make that sword without forging that sword in the fire. When we pull you out, you're going to be ready and battle tested for whatever you go through. And boot camp really is just a mental game. And we're playing on all the weaknesses that we can find. And our job throughout that entire boot camp phase is to find a way to make you want to quit. And we know that if you make it through boot camp, then you're ready for whatever that's on the other side of it. And so that's just one of the things about Cedar Hill, the TTHL, turn those horns loose, Longhorn speed, protect the family, protect the brand, the chance that the kids have, DPS, district playoffs, state, that's the vision of the program. All those things, man, are still in play 20 years later, and it's all stemmed from what Coach Lynn and Coach McGuire brought all those years ago.
Man, that's some good stuff, Coach, what you just said. And I think out of all you said, the boot camp, yes, for those who local may know it, those out of town who may not. And I want to hit on that a little bit more. But you said the culture is living, it's breathing. You can see it. It's like a person. That's a nugget. Expound just a little bit more on that one, Coach. Is that just, you can see the banners, you can expound on that culture that you can almost feel?
When we, our core values, when we talk about our core values, mental toughness, selflessness, discipline, accountability, our kids, they understand what all of those things mean. Our kids understand what district playoff state DPS means. Our kids understand our mission statement to make student athletes champions in all areas of life. Like, they understand our standard of behavior, be above average. What does that mean? Be above average in your grades, be above average in your behavior. Right? We tell our kids that C's kill transcripts. If you make a ton of C's at Cedar Hill, you're doing yourself a disservice, because every school in the nation is going to walk through these doors. When they walk through these doors, they're not looking for the guy that got the C's on the transcripts. They want B or better, right? And if you can do those things, it puts you in position to get the Division I scholarships that all of the kids want, right? And so when we talk about TTHL, Longhorn speed, when you say those things to our kids, it's a trigger. It triggers a response, right? And we know that when we say those things to our kids, we know what we're going to get out of it. And so it's something that is embedded. It's embedded in you. You believe it. You sleep. You eat. You breathe. All those things that we're giving to you as far as our culture. You see it. And so the more it is on display, the bigger our culture, that living, walking, breathing thing becomes. And so it's funny, we always talk about how emotional our kids are. And we kind of say, like, at Cedar Hill, we're never out of a ball game because of our culture. When our kids, they'll be on the sideline, their kids are talking about this, we've been through boot camp. They haven't been through boot camp. Our kids will say Longhorn speed. Our kids will say, take them to the deep. Let's see if they can swim in the deep. Like, our kids will start saying those things, and they mean something. And so we say, okay, as a coaching staff, we know in a game we can be losing. We know when we're about to start winning, because we always say this: it's about to get spiritual. That's how we put our thumb on that thing that you can't explain that happens when that momentum begins to shift in a football game. We say it's about to get spiritual. And it's because of that culture. When you believe in something, when you put together a program, you understand it's your roadmap, and you have to follow that roadmap. And when you follow that roadmap, it's going to get you to a destination. And that's what it's about with our kids. It's getting them to understand that this It's bigger than just football. It's also principles that apply to their lives outside of football. Because we have kids, they're grown men now that have played at Cedar Hill on that 2006 state championship team, all the way through those years. They come back and talk to our kids, and it amazes me how many of them can tell you all the core values, can recite the core values, and talk about how it's still important and relevant in their lives outside of football, you know. And so that's why a lot of the college coaches that come to Cedar Hill love to get our kids, because they understand that we have a culture and that our kids are going to be a little bit different than a lot of kids that they get.
With Coach McGuire, everybody should know, was at Baylor, new head coach at Texas Tech. Would he say that the whole thing of that thing was mainly culture? And if so, I mean, not mainly culture, but mainly the boot camp. If so, do you know where Coach got that idea from?
Yeah. So, you know, he went down, the staff went down to Smithson Valley when they were really good, early 2000s, and they do a version of the boot camp that we do. And so the idea came from them. Boot camp is really just military training. You know, it's what a lot of our military service personnel kind of go through. And for us, we found a way to tweak it to Cedar Hill, make it specific and unique for us and our circumstances. What do we want to do? What are we trying to gain? We're trying to get our kids to be disciplined. We're trying to get them to be mentally tough. We want them to be selfless because they can't think about themselves. We want our kids to have an edge and to be able to play with an edge. And they want to be, you know, accountable. And so we've devised a whole entire program. When they get to school, when they step on campus, shirts tucked in, collared shirt. We'll tell them on Monday, it's red shirt. Every one of them got a red shirt on. They have to sit together during breakfast, lunch, good emails have good consequences, bad emails have bad consequences. There's just a lot of things that have to stand at attention. I mean, you would think that you're in the service when you come and you see us in that moment, in that mode of boot camp. And so we know what we want and we know what it looks like. And so when our kids understand that, then they start to live up to the expectation. Because when they first get into boot camp, it's about them. And they learn that it quickly has to become about we more than we. You know, and I had that conversation today with one of my kids. We started off-season today. You know, he said, Coach, I killed it. I said, yeah, you killed it. I said, but you were at the front of your line. What about the guys behind you in your line? I said, you could be 100%, but you are not going to win us a game by yourself. You have to find a way as a leader to get those guys to live up to the standard. And so that's what I love about off-season, man. Yeah. It's the psychology. It's the psychology behind it. It's finding out where you missed, how to attack it, and how to get better.
Yeah. Talk to me about this year, Coach. Talk to me about your mindset. You're to DC. What was the thought coming into this past year?
Man, this year, man, it was a lot of moving pieces. Coach Harris, we were together, you know, for 4 years. That staff was together, you know, most of it for 5. And we were so tight, like that's my brother. Like I called him earlier. We talk almost every day. Coach Rourke, who was on that staff, Coach Rink, all those guys that left. Like it was a family, and we got so close together that when we were in games, our chemistry was unbelievable. When the adjustments needed to be made, we didn't have to say anything to each other. We already knew what the adjustments were. And so we knew how to get things fixed a lot faster because of the chemistry, because we all knew what the defense looked like and how it should be run. So for me this year, to lose Coach Harris, Coach Rink, Coach Rourke, and then having to replace that, it was going to look different. Not only was it going to look different from a coaching standpoint, everything that we lost on defense last year, we were going to have to replace those guys in that production. And so I knew it was going to be a large task to continue to play the style of defense that we have always played. Because let's be real, nobody cares. Nobody is going to look at it and say Coach Gates didn't have Coach Harris, Coach Reed, all those guys. We're not going to say they didn't have the same players on the field. None of that matters. The standard is the standard. So are the expectations. So how do we rise to the expectation? So when we hired those guys, I told them, I said, listen, our goal is to be able to get back to a position where everybody on defense knows our defense. Everybody knows what the adjustments are within the defense. You have a lot of learning to do, but we have to make sure that we expedite it as fast as we possibly can. That's expediting knowledge, that's expediting chemistry, expediting communications and expectations. It's a lot, and I felt like over this first year with the good guys that we brought in, we did a really good job of doing that. We played really, really good defense, throughout the year. We had a couple of games where we didn't play as well as I had hoped for, but I never questioned our kids and I never questioned our coaches. And sometimes when you play some of those games, at the end of the day, it comes down to them just being a little bit better than you were. And you have to be okay with that, And so for the most part of this year, I felt like we played pretty darn good defense and put ourselves in position to win games.
As a defensive coordinator, coach, do you have a certain coaching philosophy for defense? Is it, like what's your X's and O's style, if you will?
Yeah, man, I do. My philosophy is really more so about teaching. And I say that to say this. Everybody teaches their scheme. We do more than teach our scheme. We teach our kids football. And so when you see us and you see us play, we're going to be physical, we're going to be aggressive, we're going to be fast, we're going to be all those intangibles that everybody want to throw around. But in order to play defense and to play at the level that we believe fits our style of play, our kids have to understand how to fit. Fits are what's most important to us on our style of football. You have some guys schematically that are going to bring blitzes from here, from there, everywhere. Personally, I feel like that is so hard to coach because when someone misses an assignment, it's hard to figure out where that miss happened. But when I call our base defense and the team runs power and my defensive end does not spill, he doesn't fit inside, and the linebacker doesn't spill the pulling guard, I know exactly who to go talk to because we're teaching you how to fit run game. And so when we teach our guys how to fit, it allows us to be able to adjust and say, hey, your angle was bad, all right? Your read was wrong, all right? He did this, so what should you have done? And so it allows for a lot of quick feedback, and it allows us to adjust a lot faster rather than saying, man, that blitz worked this time, but it didn't work this time because of X, Y, and Z. You're trying to figure out why it didn't work. We know when things go wrong in our defense where it went wrong.
What's your means, coach, of growing from an X's and O's standpoint, and just in life as a man, as a husband? What's ways in which you try to grow as a coach and as a person?
Right now, man, I'm doing a lot of reading. I just finished PJ Flex. Sir?
I say, what's on the book chart? What's on the book?
I just finished PJ Flex, Roll the Boat. Now I'm reading Extreme Ownership, How the Navy SEALs Lead and Win. It's a really good book. My next read is Winning by Tim Grover. So I got some books that are lined up, but I'm trying to find ways right now to reinvent myself, and I'm trying to create a process. I told my son this a couple of weeks ago. Successful people have a process. You have to find what the process is, and you have to follow the process. It's not about how I feel today, because if I operate based on my feelings, I won't get anything done. There's a lot of times that I feel like I don't want to. People that are successful understand how to follow the process. The process takes away all feelings. You know you have to get it done. In order to be where you say you want to be, in order to be elite, you have to follow the process. People that are not elite, they get bored, they get tired, they get caught up in their feelings, and they get off the path. And if you're off the path for just a day, somebody just passed you up.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to find out what's the best process for me. What's the process that I know that I can do without a shadow of a doubt that is going to allow me to grow at the rate that I want to grow? And so I'm reading a whole bunch of different books, man, trying to find out the psychology behind that.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty good. So going in, y'all had a pretty good year, end up losing in playoffs. Going into this off season, any areas you want to work on as far as the team, as far as like you say, yourself, like what do you think this off season is going to be dedicated to?
Oh man, that's a good question. We're in our right now we're working on our season breakdown. So we're going to go through every game. We're going to break down every aspect of that game. We're going to have an intensive report on that game. And so we're putting all that together. I'll compile all of that, put it into a book. We'll have that to refer to. And that's going to drive our decision making and things that we need to get better at. Personally, one of the things that I felt like I could have done a better job at, and I had this conversation with Coach Lynn, is driving home the importance of the mission. I think a lot of times we miss the mission because we're captivated by the moment. So when we get in the moment, we can at times forget about the mission, what's the ultimate goal. And so I could have strategized strategically, have done some things with our guys to keep them with their eyes on the mission rather than their eyes on the moment. And so that's something that I'm working on right now. It's going to be vital to, I believe, our success next year.
Okay. Talk about some of the coaches on staff, coach, and talk about some of the leaders this year. Who are some of those team leaders that really show a lot of heart this year?
Some of the team leaders as far as players?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, right now, Colin Salter, he's blowing up, for me. He's rated yesterday the number 17 outside linebacker in the nation. His brother was Caden Salter, who was our quarterback, who was the Elite 11 quarterback. I think for him to see his brother go through the process allowed him to thrive and to see exactly what it takes in order to get there. And what I love about him is that he's a guy that loves, we talked about the process, he loves the process. When you turn on the film and you watch him on the field, you go, that guy's a football player. But then if you walk in the weight room and you see how he works in the weight room, you go, that guy's a football player.
Yeah.
There is no light switch. It's always on when it comes to football. If it's us in the classroom, he's trying to grind to get better. He's going to ask questions. And so I'm glad that we have another year with him, and I'm excited about his growth. Another guy that we have on our side of the ball on defense is a defensive tackle, Elijah Gillard. He was kind of a guy that wasn't really on the radar as far as how much playing time he would get, but because of who he is and because of his work ethic, he ended up starting for us for I think game 3 to the end of the season. And so having him back, being a cornerstone of that defensive line, is going to also help, thrust us in the right direction because he's a Cedar Hill kid. He's been in the program. It'll be 4 years. He understands, again, the process of what we want in the culture. So, he's going to be big and vital to our success. And then I have, my sophomore defensive end who, I'm pushing to fill that need as well as leadership in Zaylen Scott. Kid is unbelievable, athletic, checks all the boxes. Ran a 4.63 at the Baylor camp this summer, as a defensive end. So I'm excited about him. Our middle linebacker and Donovan Malone, first year playing varsity football. Excited about his growth. Great kid, great family, smart kid. Now we have all these kids, and I can name a whole bunch. We have all these kids coming back, and so I'm excited about what we're going to be able to do with them a year later in the development with more experience on varsity.
All right. So we've been talking for almost an hour, 30 minutes. So we've been really rolling. So we're going to kind of wind it down. I want if you got anybody want to shout out, coach, any of that you can. I want to end on two questions. I want to end with, give me your definition of team and give me your definition of leadership.
Man, two great questions. Team is understanding that I am only part of the picture. I am a puzzle that has a place in the picture. I'm not the entire picture.
That's good.
I have to understand that wherever my role is necessary in the overall scheme of what the picture looks like.
Yeah, that's good.
If you've ever had a puzzle and you put together a 100-piece puzzle and you have 99 pieces and you're missing one, you realize that it's not complete. And so when we have these individual pieces of talent, to get them to all understand that they're equally important in different ways, but they also make up the overall portrait that we're trying to put together. It's hard to do, especially when you're 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Why is it? Because everyone wants to be able to get an offer and to tweet it out and, you know, want to have that little bit of a moment where you can say, look at me. When you understand the true dynamics of a team, you feel comfortable in what you bring to the table. And that in this role, there's nobody else that can fill this role the way that I can. And so when it comes to leadership, I'm a huge John Maxwell fan. A couple of things that I'll say. Leadership. People believe in the leader before they believe in the vision. You walk into a place, I could sell you on my vision, but if you don't believe in me as a leader, my vision will never come to fruition. I have to invest in people as a leader. You have to understand that true leadership is about serving other people. It's not about you. The more people I serve, the more people naturally will believe in the things that I want to get done. And then last, everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. The book that I'm reading now, Extreme Ownership, Chapter 2 says, there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. And so in this book, it talks about Navy SEALs training. And they have these 6 teams, right? And so they're talking about Hell Week, where these teams of 8-10 people are up for 72 straight hours. And they're going through this intense physical workout, working together as a team. The team that wins these races, these challenges, they get an opportunity to sit down and miss the next race. They can rest while the other ones are working. And so it talks about Team 2 and Team 6. The leader for Team 2, you could tell that he was a supreme leader because this team had always won. And Team 6, they were coming in last almost every race. And so the instructor decided he was going to change the leadership from Team 2 to Team 6, and from Team 6, the team that had been losing to Team 2. Now, Team 6 hadn't won a race all day. And when they made the change, the very next race, Team 6 beat Team 2. Same guys,
Yeah.
different leadership.
Wow.
And so it speaks to the volume that what John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. And then in that book, it says that there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. And so when you put that into context, that doesn't necessarily mean that because you got the right leader that you're going to win every game. What that does mean is that a leader has an ability to squeeze as much juice out of the orange as possible. He finds a way to maximize the potential of those around him. A leader understands that in order to lead, I also have to serve. And when people can see the leader roll up his sleeves and go to work with them, man, it makes you say, if the head guy is willing to pick up trash, I walk by a piece of trash. You know, and so you lead from example. When people see that, it also increases your credibility, and you know that's what is most important to me.
Wow. Well, man, we've been rolling, Coach. Hour 33. I think we're gonna get ready to wrap it up now. You want to shout out your wife or your kids, man, Coach?
Most definitely, man. I want to shout out my wife. My wife is my rock. I'm able to do what I do because of her. She is a go-getter in her own right. You know, my wife has essentially changed the dynamics of her company with her leadership tactics. What she's doing is equivalent to what we're doing in, you know, our form of work. So my wife is for real. When we talk about leadership, you know, a lot of things that I get an opportunity to talk to with her, you know, I take things from her, she takes things from me. You know, she's definitely forced me in a good way to become a better man, and I'm grateful, and I thank God for her and our kids. Definitely Coach Lynn, you know, Coach Gilbert, Coach Chris, those are the original gangsters, what we call them, the true OGs. When people tell you that no matter what, when you have a question, when you need me to do X, Y, and Z, sometimes people just say that exiting a conversation, not ever really expecting you to pick up the phone and do that. And then when you do it, they don't have time or they find a way to back out of it. Nah. I know I lean on those guys a lot. And if I'm just one person that leans on those guys a lot, I know there are a lot of guys that are like me that lean on those guys a lot. And for them to pick up the phone, to call you back, to sit you down, to talk to you, and give you advice, man, I'm grateful. Like I said, God knew what he was doing when he placed me in this situation, and I'm forever grateful to him for that.
Wow. Coach, man, this is one of the best ones. I mean, just this is smoking, man. Over an hour, so we'll probably break this one up into two. And you know, of course, you're gonna keep ascending, Coach. You'll be a head coach soon, and you'll be able to. Now, I know Coach Lynn probably don't want that yet, but you'll be able to ascend because Coach is just in you. You know, I posted a post on Twitter. I said it's not on you, it's in you. So,
Yes, sir.
Coach, appreciate it big time for joining me. Much success on your career and on all your endeavors for you and your wife and your whole family. And God bless, man. I'm grateful for you coming on.
Man, I appreciate it, man. And again, dog, it's big what you're doing. And this right here, you don't know what doors are gonna open, you know, from something that you may not see, or maybe you do see, you know. And God, you know, one of my favorite tweets that I've had that's pinned on my page, it says, God, he'll let you know when you're ready, you know.
Yeah.
And so everything is a learning experience. Every opportunity is teaching you a reason why. You know, you never know in the moment when you're going through things why you go through what you go through. And I can say this for me personally, but I get those aha moments when everything comes full circle and I go, that's why I went through that. Now it makes sense because it didn't then. And so just keep grinding, bro. You know, you're a trailblazer in your own right. And I appreciate everything you do and your passion, you know, for kids, for coaches, and for people, man. I appreciate you.
Hey, brother. Hey, likewise. Love you. Coach, go get some water. Go chill, man. We've been talking for 2 hours, man. I know you rest your work request. We'll catch up later, man.
All right, bro. Appreciate it.
All right. Yes, sir. Take care.